Hello everybody, welcome to the 5 Red Lights. My name's Aaron, and let's preview the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard.
1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and it's go, 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 go!
So it's off to Le Castellet for the first of a triple header, with the first race being in France, and then 2 at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, just as it was in 2020. But before I dive into my preview of the French Grand Prix, let's round up some news that has come out this week. So we've heard rumours from Italian sources that George Russell is set to be confirmed as a Mercedes driver at Silverstone in a few weeks' time. Now that would be huge for Mercedes to name an all-British lineup for next season at the British Grand Prix. But where would that leave Valtteri Bottas? It would leave him in a very uncomfortable position. It might actually be a bad idea for Mercedes, given the closeness of the championship fight with Red Bull, and given the performance that Red Bull have had from the last race in Baku, where they were easily the fastest car and really should have had a 1-2 finish. If you upset Bottas and say that he's out of a drive, will he be willing to help the team in the championship fight against Red Bull, or will it free him up and unleash his full potential so he can impress other teams, so that he can have a contract with them for next season? As for George, he's looking for that security, and he is chomping at the bit to get in that Mercedes again. Will we see it? I think we will, but I don't think it will be announced at Silverstone. I think they'll wait a little bit later in the year. Maybe have a chat with Bottas first. But really, Bottas's performances recently have left quite a bit to be desired. But I'd still give him a few more races, at least until the summer break. See where he is then. If he's had another 5 or 6 races where he's again failed to win, or not taking podiums, or losing points to Red Bull, that's where I'd start thinking about announcing the switch. More news coming out of Baku was the Pirelli tyre situation. Now, we haven't had proper confirmation as to how the tyre failures happened, but La Gazzetta dello Sport, if I can get that out, they claim that the blame lies with the teams and how they're manipulating the tyre pressures. Now, I'm no expert on tyre pressures of a Formula 1 car, but I know that the FIA take the pressures before the race and Pirelli keep a close eye on them, and they're regularly changing them through the weekend. So if the teams are finding a way around that and it's causing problems with the tyre structurally, then they would have something to answer for. But then, it's not a case of pointing fingers. It's a working together solution. You can't have tyres exploding, but you can't have the tyres taking away from the show. So it's a really fine, delicate balancing act. One thing that Pirelli are maybe slightly too conservative on, and the teams then try and make up for to gain performance. It's a tough situation. Not really sure where that leaves everybody, to be honest, because it's just he said, she said. I haven't heard anything concrete from Pirelli, but we'll look forward to hopefully something coming out ahead or during the French Grand Prix weekend. Talking of which, let's preview that. So Max and Lewis head into Baku separated by just 4 points still after both failed to score in Baku. Max, of course, failing to make the flag at all, while Lewis fluffed his lines at the restart, keeping the magic brake button on by mistake and going straight on at turn 1. Now, who's going to come back out on top firing at Paul Ricard? Mercedes have generally gone really well there. We've only had 2 races at the Paul Ricard circuit since everyone went back there, obviously 2018 and 2019, and then there was no race there last year. Hamilton does, though, as I said previously, have a really good record of bouncing back from disappointing results. He's done it throughout his career, and I actually think that the Azerbaijan weekend was a good weekend for Lewis, even though he got 0 points, because of the way they had to attack the weekend and come from a struggling position through Friday practice. And I think Mercedes are going to get their car back on song at Paul Ricard. It's more of a circuit that will suit their philosophy, and they should be able to generate heat in their tyres a little bit easier, a little bit more grippy surface, a proper asphalt for racing rather than a road circuit. Now, how that will affect Red Bull, not easy to say. Max also had a great weekend, but there will be some frustrating pieces of that weekend for him. Obviously, he was annoyed on Saturday in his post-qualifying interview with all the red flags. He had his FP3 crash, the red flag denying his final run in Q3, and then obviously the cherry on top with the tyre blowout. Who will Paul Ricard favour though? Red Bull have got a good car this year, and the Mercedes has kind of been, I wouldn't say pegged back, but because Red Bull have obviously moved up level with them, but Mercedes has certainly lost something from 2020. Now, the first sector, and it's got multiple turns. Braking is a big demand in that first sector, and car agility, low speed downforce, and good balance. Just reading from my notes here. The sector 2, incorporating the straight, you need some top speed. You're going to need some more good braking into the chicane, and you need to be good on the traction out into the second part of that straight. And again, the final sector, you need a very agile car and something that handles quite nicely through long corners. Now, long corners will suit a long wheelbase car like the Mercedes, but the high rake setup of the Red Bull will help them in the low speed sectors and give them good grip and good balance under braking. So my guess is that Mercedes will have a very small edge, and of course it's going to then come down to whoever pulls it out of the bag in qualifying or in the race, whoever plays the strategy right, if anyone makes a mistake in the pit stops. And this is what team sports is all about. You want to see both teams going at it and having to battle, because now the Mercedes have had a couple of years where they've kind of had an edge on everybody else, so the pressure's been off. Now the pressure's on, and who is going to handle it best? That is the conundrum. The bigger question for me, though, bigger than who will actually be on top, is how significant a role the second driver in each team will play. Sergio Perez is coming off the back of a fantastic victory in Baku, his first for Red Bull, his second career win. But where is Valtteri Bottas going to filter out in all of this? He had a stinker on the streets of Azerbaijan, just could not get to grips with the car, couldn't get anything going, finished 12th. I mean, there was no major issues apart from the car not being able to function properly in terms of generating heat into the tyres. And it took a mistake from Lewis to have Bottas finish ahead of him. So where is Valtteri going to find himself in all of this? And that tussle at the front could be decided by how close Sergio and Valtteri are to their respective teammates. Can Sergio stay close to Max's pace as he was actually on Max's pace in Baku? And where is Valtteri going to find himself? Is he going to be able to perform at his best again in France and assist Hamilton in his quest for World Championship number 8? And if Bottas seriously wants to get himself into title contention, he has to win this weekend. Sergio's won, now Valtteri has to win, because otherwise Lewis is just going to run away and he'll very quickly find himself in that wingman role, which he hates, but he will be forced into it. Sorry, Valtteri, but it is make or break time for your championship. Let's talk about Ferrari and McLaren's prospects and those in the midfield with them. McLaren and Ferrari obviously at the front of the midfield, third and fourth in the Constructors' World Championship. Ferrari taking that fourth place courtesy of Carlos Sainz's eighth place finish in Baku. And they were surprisingly quick, actually, on the streets of Baku, off the back of their stunning pace in Monaco. And of course, they had pole position at both races. So really, they could have come away with 2 victories had they had obviously Charles Leclerc start from pole position in Monaco, and had they had the right car set up for the race in Baku. They didn't, and they probably feel they have underachieved from those 2 race weekends. So McLaren will have got away with it slightly. But will Paul Ricard favour McLaren? because they've struggled compared to Ferrari over the last couple of weekends. And Andrea Seidel described it as damage limitation, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Can McLaren snatch that third place back? I think they're going to find themselves very close on pace. And I think Ferrari will find themselves more regularly where they were in the race in Azerbaijan, which is to say, battling with the AlphaTauris and with McLaren. Who comes out on top in that contest? It's difficult to say because Ferrari have obviously got a car that works really well at low speed. And there's some low speed corners through the end of the first sector in Paul Ricard and the twisty nature of the final few corners too. But will they have lost too much time through the middle sector to McLaren? And what about AlphaTauri? They've got a good rapid car this year, and Pierre Gasly proved that by taking P4 in Baku. I think they'll be there or thereabouts as well. I think McLaren will just have a slight edge over those two. Who else is going to go well in France? Well, Aston Martin, along with AlphaTauri, bagged podiums in Baku, but I think a repeat for both teams is unlikely. If they play their strategy cards right, they're looking at some solid points. What about the home team? Alpine. Their first race as Alpine on home soil. Fernando Alonso coming off the back of a fabulous 6th place finish in Baku. And they struggled really in Baku. They didn't have the pace of the midfield competitors around them. And to come out with a P6 was fantastic. Unfortunately, Esteban Ocon didn't finish. And of course, he's going into his home race just as Pierre Gasly is this weekend. And he will want to do well, as will Pierre, as will the whole Alpine team. Alpine went well in Portimao. They picked up 5th on the grid, I think. And then I think they picked up a double point score as well. And I'd expect them to be in the mix with AlphaTauri and Aston Martin, just behind McLaren and Ferrari. But the midfield is so competitive, we could see any one of those teams come out on top. Can Aston Martin and Sebastian Vettel keep their form going? Seb is now riding the crest of a wave for me, and he's looking like the old Seb. It's maybe too soon to say he's back, but he's looking on song. And Lance Stroll, keep an eye on him, because he was looking really good in Baku. Despite the qualifying crash, he came through on those harder tyres before they popped, obviously, and was looking really, really solid for some points. He'd have been on the soft tyres to the end, and he'd have had an opportunity to make some overtakes. Will Aston Martin go well at Paul Ricard in terms of better than expected? Not sure, but they'll be there with AlphaTauri, I think, and with Alpine. It's going to be mighty close. It's going to be a massive scrap in the midfield. And again, like the fight at the front, it comes down to who gets those finer details perfect. Well, thanks for watching, guys. That's been my preview of the French Grand Prix. Join me later in the week where I'll share some of my favourite French Grand Prix from years gone by, and I share my predictions for the race weekend moving forward. As always, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, leave a like on the video, and check out my social channels, which are on Twitter at 5_red_lights and on Instagram 5redlights. Remember, kind is king. Be kind, everybody, and I'll see you when the 5 red lights go out. My name's Aaron. This has been the 5 Red Lights. See you next time, guys.